Today we are reviewing the comparative analysis of diametric nutritional paradigms. Gary Null's plant-based detoxification versus Yoshua Bartoll's evolutionary ketogenesis, alongside Beyond the Fiber Lie by Yoshua Bartoll, The Complete Guide to Health and Nutrition by Gary Null, and the article Warning, Fat Holds Toxins from Miller's Biofarm.
Right, which is quite the lineup of sources.
It really is. Welcome to the deep dive. I mean, imagine for a second that you take your broken down car to two world-renowned, absolute genius mechanics.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
So the first mechanic looks under the hood, shakes their head, and tells you to immediately flush the engine with this high-octane, highly refined plant-based fuel to just wash away decades of grime.
Makes sense, a total clean out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then the second mechanic looks at that exact same engine and tells you that the plant-based fuel is actually what's destroying your cylinders, and that you need to switch immediately to a thick, heavy, unrefined diesel.
Talk about conflicting advice.
Right. And today, your body is that engine. Our mission for you is to unpack two mutually exclusive, diametrically opposed nutritional paradigms that, frankly, both claim to hold the definitive absolute truth for human longevity.
And for the reversal of chronic disease, which is huge.
Yeah, exactly. We're looking at the biochemical why behind these opposing camps. Because, we need to understand how they both can claim such wild success.
It is arguably one of the most fascinating juxtapositions in modern nutritional science. I mean, you have a highly developed methodology that treats the plant kingdom as the ultimate exclusive source of human healing.
The holy grail of health.
Right. And on the absolute opposite end of the spectrum, you have a methodology that treats that exact same plant kingdom as, well, a source of toxic biological interference, like a literal evolutionary mismatch.
Exactly. And the stakes here for you, the listener, I mean, they could not be higher. If you spend even 5 minutes online trying to figure out what to eat to feel better.
Oh, it's a nightmare out there.
It really is. We live in a world of absolute, overwhelming, and totally contradictory health information. It feels like every single week there is a new definitive rule about what is going to save your life.
And then the very next week, that exact same food is going to end it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we are going to dive deep today. We want to provide you with clarity by looking at the mechanisms under the hood. How do these diets actually work on a cellular level?
Which is the only way to really make sense of it all.
Totally. And just to be completely clear from the jump, we are maintaining absolute impartiality regarding any controversial theories presented in these texts. We aren't here to pick a winner for you.
No, definitely not.
Right. We are here to show you how these paradigms function biochemically, objectively, and thoroughly.
Which is really the only productive way to approach this, I think, because the immense value here isn't necessarily in, adopting one extreme or the other. It's in finally understanding the physiological arguments they are actually making. When you understand the mechanisms like the how and the why, you are just so much better equipped to make informed decisions for your own biology.
So let's start at one extreme of the spectrum. We are going to look at a diet built entirely around plant saturation and the complete, total, uncompromising elimination of all animal products.
This is the paradigm championed by Gary Null.
Yes. To give you some context on the source material, Gary Null holds a PhD in human nutrition and public health science.
Which is a very specific lens to look at health through.
Exactly. And he has written extensively on this for decades, including his foundational text, The Complete Guide to Health and Nutrition, which we are heavily pulling from today. He has a massive body of clinical observation and writing targeting things like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, autoimmune disorders, and cognitive decline.
His background in public health science is really key to understanding his philosophy here. Null is looking at health from this macroscopic population-wide perspective,
Right, looking at the big picture.
Yeah. He's observing the absolutely surging, compounding rates of chronic degenerative disease across the Western world. And his primary hypothesis is, frankly, incredibly empowering in its basic premise.
How so?
Well, he operates on the foundational belief that the human body is inherently self-healing.
But there is a catch, right?
Oh, a massive catch. That self-healing mechanism is entirely conditional. Null argues that it only activates if the body is freed from toxic accumulation and simultaneously flooded with highly bioavailable plant-derived micronutrients.
Okay, let's really break down what toxic accumulation means in Null's world, because he believes that modern chronic illnesses are fundamentally driven by pro-inflammatory foods, environmental pollutants, and cellular oxidation.
We're basically walking toxic waste dumps thanks to modern life, in his view.
Pretty much. So his protocol is a strict alkalizing, anti-inflammatory vegan diet. And when we say strict, we mean strict. Let's look at the ratio he demands.
It's pretty intense.
It's 75% raw plant foods and 25% lightly cooked plant foods. And that 25% must be cooked at extremely low temperatures. He specifically warns against what he calls heat-induced mutagens.
That detail about temperature is crucial in Null's paradigm, and we really need to understand the why here. When you cook organic matter, especially at high heat, think grilling, frying, roasting, or even just a heavy sauté,
Yeah,
you are triggering violent chemical reactions at the molecular level.
like the browning on a piece of toast or the sear on a vegetable.
Exactly. That is a chemical process. You can create what are called advanced glycation end products, or AGEs.
I've heard that term AGEs, but what is it actually doing inside the body?
Think of glycation like caramelizing an onion. When sugars bond with proteins or fats under high heat, they get sticky, brown, and stiff.
Okay, I can visualize that.
Now imagine that process happening inside your blood vessels or your skin tissue. These AGEs make your cellular structures rigid and dysfunctional. They are highly oxidative and inflammatory.
Wow. So by keeping 75% of the food completely raw, Null argues you are avoiding this entirely.
Exactly. And more importantly, you are preserving the natural enzymes and the delicate, untouched molecular structure of the micronutrients, ensuring they are delivered to your cells completely intact.
And to make sure those nutrients have a, clean house to operate in, there is the elimination list.
Oh, yeah, the list.
To clear the way for this intense biological healing, you have to stop eating everything he considers pro-inflammatory. The list from the force is just staggering.
It really wipes out a typical pantry.
It includes refined carbohydrates, wheat, gluten, dairy, meat, poultry, shellfish, alcohol, caffeine, refined sugars, artificial sweeteners, carbonated beverages, table salt, and even nightshade vegetables.
It is a sweeping, unyielding elimination of basically the entire standard modern diet.
It's wild. It's essentially a total rejection of industrialized food and potential allergens. Let's take nightshades as a great example of his hypervigilance, actually.
That's a good one to focus on. Nightshades, which include tomatoes, eggplants, bell peppers, and potatoes, contain certain defensive chemical compounds called alkaloids.
And why are alkaloids a problem? Like, I love a bell pepper.
Right, for a healthy person, they might not be a problem at all. But for someone with a compromised system, which Null assumes most modern people have, those alkaloids can be highly inflammatory.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they are known to trigger flare-ups in people with autoimmune disorders, rheumatoid arthritis, and joint issues. Null leaves absolutely nothing to chance here. He removes any single variable that might trigger a subtle immune response or contribute to an acidic environment in the tissues.
So if you are listening to this and you've mentally removed all meat, all dairy, all wheat, all caffeine, and half your vegetables,
You're probably wondering what's left.
right,
Yeah.
what are you actually eating? A really common question with vegan protocols is the protein source, especially if we're talking about longevity and tissue repair.
Which is a very valid concern.
Null recommends 0.9 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. For the average woman, that's roughly 40 to 60 grams daily, and for a man, 60 to 80 grams. But he is incredibly specific about where it comes from.
He has to be, given the restrictions.
Exactly. He focuses heavily on ancient grains and specific plants. We're talking about amaranth, quinoa, millet, buckwheat, and pure pea or hemp protein powders.
The focus on ancient grains is very intentional. Amaranth, quinoa, and buckwheat are technically pseudo-cereals.
What's that mean? A pseudo-cereal?
It means they are broadleaf plants that produce seeds you can eat like grains, but they aren't true grasses like modern wheat.
Okay, so they're different biologically.
Right. And because they aren't wheat, they are naturally completely gluten-free. But more importantly, they have a completely different, much more robust amino acid profile. Quinoa, for instance, is a complete protein.
Let's explain complete versus incomplete protein for the listener, just so we're all on the same page.
Sure. A complete protein contains all 9 essential amino acids in adequate proportions. Essential just means your human body cannot synthesize them on its own.
You absolutely must get them from your diet.
Exactly. Most plant proteins are incomplete. They're missing 1 or 2 of these building blocks. But quinoa has all 9.
Wow, okay.
So Null is ensuring that while this diet is entirely plant-based and mostly raw, the critical biological building blocks for repairing tissue, building muscle, and fueling enzymatic function are fully present, and completely without the inflammatory baggage of conventional wheat, gluten, or animal proteins.
But the solid food is really only half the story with Null.
Oh, the liquid protocol.
Yes. Along with the meals, there is an intense, scheduled liquid protocol. Null mandates multiple 16-ounce servings of purely organic vegetable juices every single day.
That's a lot of juice.
It is. And it's not just throwing whatever you have into a blender. It's a scheduled progression, scaling from green varieties like celery and cucumber up to red varieties like beet and carrot throughout the week.
Right, there's a specific order to it.
Yeah, and on top of that, there's a specific morning tonic consisting of lemon juice, apple cider vinegar, and manuka honey, plus coconut water specifically targeted for its potassium content.
What's fascinating here is how this liquid protocol functions biochemically. It isn't just about hydration, you know. It is an engineered delivery system entirely designed around exogenous antioxidant saturation.
Okay, exogenous antioxidant saturation. Break that down for us. What is actually happening in the body when someone drinks these juices?
Let's start with the terms. Exogenous just means it originates from outside an organism. You are bringing these powerful antioxidants in externally through your diet.
Got it.
Now let's talk about why you need them. When your body processes toxins, whether that's air pollution, stress hormones, or just normal cellular exhaust from daily living, it creates free radicals.
Those are the unstable molecules we always hear about in anti-aging creams, right?
Exactly. Free radicals are essentially molecules missing an electron. They are highly unstable and aggressive.
They just want that missing piece.
Right, so they will roam around your body and literally steal electrons from your healthy cells, your DNA, your cell membranes. That theft causes cellular damage, which we call oxidation. It's like biological rust.
Biological rust, that's a great way to put it.
Null's strategy is to completely overwhelm the body with antioxidants from these massive quantities of raw juices. Antioxidants are molecules that graciously donate an electron to the free radicals, neutralizing them before they can cause damage.
It's like sending in a massive peacekeeping force to stop a riot.
Precisely. But it goes deeper than just neutralizing rust. These specific, highly concentrated nutrients in the juices are required to trigger what we call phase 1 and phase 2 liver detoxification pathways.
Okay, I really want to spend time on this because this is where the biochemistry gets amazing. How do phase I and phase 2 work?
Well, your liver is the master filtration system of your body. When a toxin enters, it's usually fat-soluble, meaning it likes to hide in fat, making it hard to flush out in urine. Phase I detoxification is the liver's first pass. It uses enzymes to break that toxin down and make it water-soluble. But here is the crazy part. That intermediate, broken-down toxin is often more volatile, more reactive, and more dangerous than the original toxin.
Wait, really? So phase I actually makes the poison angrier?
Yes, it's a necessary step, but it creates a highly dangerous intermediate compound. That is where phase 2 comes in. Phase 2 is called the conjugation pathway.
Conjugation. Oh,
This is where the liver takes that volatile, angry toxin and binds it to another molecule, like a sulfur molecule or an amino acid, to neutralize it and make it safe to excrete.
So if phase 1 is like making a criminal drop their weapon, phase 2 is the police escort that handcuffs them, puts them in the back of the cruiser, and safely escorts them out of town.
That is a brilliant way to look at it. And here's Null's entire point. Phase 2 detoxification, the handcuffing and escorting out, requires massive amounts of specific nutrients to function.
It doesn't just happen on its own.
No, it needs the phytochemicals, the sulfur from cruciferous veggies, the precise vitamins found in those raw juices. If you don't have enough of those nutrients, phase I creates all these highly volatile toxins, but phase 2 can't clear them out. You end up sicker.
Wow.
Null's raw juices are essentially premium, high-octane chemical fuel for this two-step liver exhaust system to ensure the police cruisers never run out of gas.
And yet, even with all these raw plants and all these perfectly engineered juices, the diet still requires heavy supplementation to fill the biological gaps.
It does. It's not totally self-contained.
According to the source texts, Null mandates methylated B12, CoQ10, quercetin, and high doses of vitamin C up to 4,000 milligrams a day, along with vitamin E, zinc, and massive amounts of vitamin A.
That's a serious daily regimen.
Okay, let's unpack this because this is a serious life-altering commitment. Think of Null's biological approach like maintaining a high-performance, incredibly high-maintenance, futuristic sports car engine.
I like this analogy.
It runs brilliantly, perfectly clean, with zero emissions.
Right.
But to keep it from completely stalling out, it requires a massive, complex, and highly specific daily influx of specialized fuels and additives.
Right. You can't just put regular unleaded in it.
Exactly. You need the green juice for phase 1, the red juice for phase 2, the morning tonic, the precise 0.9 grams of amaranth protein, the methylated B12, the 4,000 milligrams of vitamin C.
It's a full-time job.
It is. If you miss a few steps, if you run out of time to juice, you risk stalling the engine because you've removed all the conventional easy fuels it used to run on. Is this level of micromanagement, this intense 247 biological audit, actually sustainable for you, the average person trying to hold down a job and raise a family?
That is the fundamental, inescapable critique of this paradigm. I mean, the clinical efficacy of flooding the body with these micronutrients and allowing the liver to detoxify is well documented in his observational studies.
The science makes sense.
The mechanism makes perfect sense. But the sheer logistical burden is immense. You are sourcing purely organic produce, washing it, juicing multiple times a day, timing the supplements, meticulously tracking your amino acid profiles to make sure your pseudo-cereals are combining correctly.
That's a lot of mental math.
It requires the individual to make their diet a central organizing pillar of their entire existence. For many people, that level of rigidity is a massive barrier to entry, or at the very least, a barrier to long-term adherence.
Which brings us to a fascinating clash of perspectives. If you are drinking your green juice right now, feeling great about those antioxidants, Null is cheering you on.
He absolutely is.
But our next expert looks at that exact same cup of green juice and sees a slow-acting, abrasive poison. We are pivoting to Joachim Bartoll's diametrically opposed approach.
It is truly a 180-degree shift in biological perspective. It challenges everything we've just established.
Let's detail Joachim Bartoll's background because it heavily informs his worldview. He is not a public health researcher looking at epidemiological data.
No, completely different field.
Bartoll is a Swedish strength coach, nutritionist, and bodybuilding specialist. His clinical experience is rooted heavily in athletic performance, metabolic efficiency, and the preservation of lean body mass.
Which changes how he defines optimal health, you know?
Exactly. His core premise is laid out in his 2026 book, Beyond the Fiber Lie, exposing the dangers of plant-based diets and embracing evolutionary living.
The title alone tells you exactly where he stands.
Right. The core premise here is that humans are evolutionary optimized at our very genetic core for the consumption of animal tissues. He argues that plant compounds, the very things Null says heal us, actually disrupt our gastrointestinal and endocrine functions.
It's a total flip.
Let's look at his macronutrient matrix, which is absolutely staggering if you grew up looking at the standard food pyramid. Bartoll advocates for 70 to 80% of your daily calories coming entirely from fat.
80%.
Yes, 15 to 30% from protein, and near zero, between 0 and 10% carbohydrates.
This is a strict, highly controlled, species-appropriate ketogenic or carnivore model. By driving carbohydrate intake to near zero, he is forcing the human body to fundamentally alter its primary energy substrate.
Because it doesn't have a choice.
Right. Instead of running on glucose derived from plants and carbohydrates, the body shifts to burning free fatty acids and ketone bodies. But Bartoll isn't just promoting this for quick weight loss or a shredded physique.
No, it's bigger than that.
Much bigger. He is aggressively promoting it as the natural baseline evolutionary state of human physiology.
And he completely and utterly rejects the concept of a balanced diet. We have always been told to eat our fiber, right? Null demands 35 to 50 grams of it a day to stay alive.
The standard medical advice.
But Bartoll's book is literally called Beyond the Fiber Lie. Why does he believe dietary fiber is a lie? He categorizes it as an indigestible material that acts as a physical abrasive.
That's physical abrasive, yeah.
He claims it causes microfriction, low-grade inflammation, and poor nutrient absorption along the delicate lining of the intestines.
It's a compelling, if highly controversial, visualization of the digestive tract. From childhood, we are taught that fiber acts as a necessary broom to sweep out the digestive tract and keep things moving.
Right, the broom analogy.
But Bartoll is arguing that this broom is actually more like coarse sandpaper. He views the human gastrointestinal tract as highly specialized for breaking down and absorbing the nutrient-dense, easily assimilable proteins and lipids found in meat.
Wait, hold on. If Null says we must have massive amounts of fiber, and Bartoll says we need zero because it acts like sandpaper, let's really break down the anatomy of why Bartoll thinks that.
Well, Bartoll points to evolutionary biology. True herbivores like cows or gorillas have massive, complex digestive systems, often with multi-chambered stomachs or gigantic ceca.
They spend all day eating leaves.
Exactly. They are essentially walking fermentation vats designed to break down tough plant cellulose. Humans don't have that anatomy. Our digestive tracts are relatively short and acidic, much closer to a wolf or a lion.
That makes sense anatomically.
Right. So when you introduce tough, fibrous plant cellulose that we lack the anatomical hardware to digest properly, Bartoll argues you are just irritating the mucosal lining of the gut, leading to bloating, microtears, leaky gut syndrome, and systemic inflammation.
And he goes beyond just the physical abrasion of the fiber. He introduces the anti-nutrient argument, which is wild.
Oh, the chemical warfare side of it.
Yes, plants can't run away from predators, right? A cow can run, a fish can swim. So plants use chemical defenses. Bartoll points to compounds like phytates, oxalates, and lectins.
Right, which are naturally occurring in many of these healthy foods.
Exactly. He argues that when you eat these plants, these defensive chemicals actively attack you. They bind to essential minerals in your body like iron, zinc, and calcium and pull them out of your system, creating severe deficiencies and systemic autoimmune issues.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Bartoll is looking at the fundamental laws of ecosystems. An animal protects itself with teeth, claws, or speed. A plant protects itself through highly evolved chemical warfare.
It's survival.
Exactly. Let's look at phytates, for instance. Phytates are heavily present in the very ancient grains and seeds that Null recommends, like quinoa and amaranth. In nutritional biochemistry, phytates are known as chelators.
What exactly does a chelator do?
A chelator acts like a chemical magnet. It binds to positively charged minerals. So when you eat a big bowl of grains, the phytates in those grains bind to the zinc, the magnesium, and the iron in your digestive tract, locking them up so your body cannot absorb them.
So they just passed right through you.
Yes, they pass right through you. Bartoll's argument is that a diet heavy in plants is actively stealing micronutrients from the consumer. It's a net negative.
So Null says the plants give you nutrients, and Bartoll says the plants steal the nutrients you already have.
Exactly, whereas Bartoll argues that a diet consisting of animal tissue provides those exact nutrients in a highly bioavailable, pre-packaged format that your body recognizes immediately.
And because of that extreme bioavailability, Bartoll's diet is naturally complete, according to his philosophy.
Which is a huge contrast to Null.
It really is. While Null relies on what looks like a pharmacy of synthetic and isolated supplements, the B12 pills, the vitamin C powders, Bartoll says you don't need a single pill if you eat nose to tail.
By eating organ meats, particularly beef liver, the body receives pre-formed vitamins. Heme iron, retinol, which is true, ready-to-use vitamin A, vitamin D3, zinc, and cobalamin, which is B12.
And here is the kicker. They come packaged in natural lipid matrices, meaning the fat required by your body to absorb those vitamins is already built right into the food.
Right. Zero synthetic supplementation required.
This is a crucial distinction regarding bioavailability.
Let's take vitamin A just as an example. Null's plant diet provides beta-carotene, which is a precursor to vitamin A. The human body has to convert beta-carotene into retinol to actually use it, and that conversion rate is notoriously poor.
How poor are we talking?
Sometimes as low as 5%, depending on your genetics. Bartoll's diet, by prescribing liver, provides direct, preformed retinol. The body doesn't have to work for it, it just absorbs it.
That's a massive difference in efficiency.
It is. The same goes for iron. Plant-based non-heme iron is poorly absorbed, while animal-based heme iron is readily absorbed.
Here's where it gets really interesting. If Gary Null's diet is that complex, high-maintenance sports car running on dozens of specific chemical additives and specialized juices, Bartoll's diet is like an ancient, heavy-duty, indestructible diesel engine.
I love that, a diesel engine.
It runs on one very dense, very basic type of fuel fat. But it views almost anything else, especially plant fiber or carbohydrates, as pouring sugar directly into the gas tank.
It just gums up the works.
Right. It's built for raw power and endurance on a single incredibly dense fuel source. But it absolutely begs the question, how does the human body actually handle the complete and total absence of carbohydrates over the long term? Doesn't your brain need carbs to function?
That is the most common fear, but it represents a profound misunderstanding of cellular metabolism. The human body is incredibly beautifully adaptable, which brings us perfectly to the underlying battleground of human physiology.
The transition from carbs to fat.
Yes. When you remove carbohydrates entirely, as Bartoll suggests, blood glucose and insulin levels plummet to a baseline low. In response to this perceived starvation of carbs, the liver shifts gears. It begins breaking down stored body fat and dietary fats into ketone bodies.
We hear about ketones all the time, but what are they physically doing in there?
There are three main ketone bodies: acetoacetate, beta-hydroxybutyrate, and acetone. Let's focus on beta-hydroxybutyrate, or BHB.
Okay, BHB.
BHB is a tiny, highly water-soluble molecule. Because it's so small, it easily crosses the blood-brain barrier. So while your brain can run on glucose, in the absence of glucose, it absolutely thrives on BHB.
So the brain just switches fuel sources.
Completely. Ketones serve as a highly efficient, incredibly clean-burning alternative fuel source for the central nervous system and muscle tissue. In fact, many people report enhanced mental clarity on ketones because they don't experience the constant spikes and crashes of blood sugar.
This transitions us perfectly into analyzing how these two experts can look at the exact same human biology, the exact same digestive tract, and draw perfectly opposite conclusions. Let's look at the microbiome divide.
This is where things get really contentious.
Oh, for sure. Gary Null believes that 35 to 50 grams of daily plant fiber is absolutely required to feed our gut microbes. His entire argument is that these bacteria ferment the fiber to produce short-chain fatty acids, primarily something called butyrate.
Which is very important in his model.
Right, which he says is the primary energy source for the cells lining the colon, maintaining the gut barrier so things don't leak out.
And we should note that is the prevailing consensus view of mainstream gastroenterology today. The massive, diverse microbiome needs prebiotic fiber to ferment and produce butyrate, which in turn prevents intestinal permeability or leaky gut.
But contrast this heavily with Bartoll. I mean, one of them has to be biologically wrong, right?
Yeah.
How can the human gut survive without fiber to sweep it out and feed those bugs?
Well, Bartoll believes that the gut lining doesn't need bacterial fermentation of fiber at all.
At all.
Zero. He argues it heals optimally not through bacterial byproducts, but through the direct absorption of highly bioavailable animal proteins, specific amino acids like glutamine, and pure collagen found in animal tissues and bone broth.
This is the absolute crux of the divergence, and it's a fascinating biological debate. Bartoll implies that the need for a massive, heavily populated microbiome to ferment fiber is actually an evolutionary adaptation to a suboptimal diet.
Like a backup generator.
Yes, a survival mechanism when meat was scarce, not a biological necessity for human thriving.
That is a massive paradigm shift.
It really is.
He suggests that if you remove the abrasive fiber, the sandpaper, and the plant toxins that are causing the damage in the first place, the gut lining doesn't need a heavy coat of butyrate from fermentation to repair itself.
Because it's not getting damaged daily anymore.
Exactly. It regenerates perfectly well, perhaps even better, using the direct structural proteins and fats from a carnivore diet. It is a completely different mechanism for maintaining intestinal integrity. One relies on a symbiotic relationship with bacteria.
And the other relies on providing the direct building blocks for tissue repair.
Precisely.
Then there is the energy divide. Null relies on glucose and fructose from complex carbohydrates, fruits, and those endless juices for brain and metabolic function.
Right, keeping the tank full of quick energy.
But because a high-carb diet, even a healthy one, can cause blood sugar spikes, he actively supports this with lifestyle interventions, mandatory power walking, meditation, and mindfulness to lower cortisol and manage that energy flow.
Null's approach is about optimizing the body's primary, easily accessible fuel source, glucose. He ensures the glucose comes from low glycemic, incredibly nutrient-dense sources rather than refined sugars, and he uses exercise to keep insulin sensitivity high so the cells can actually receive the glucose.
Contrast this with Bartoll, who relies entirely on those ketone bodies you mentioned, specifically beta-hydroxybutyrate, produced by the liver from heavy fats.
The BHB.
Right. He argues this provides a non-glycemic, steady energy source that completely eliminates the crashes, the hangover, and the brain fog associated with the carbohydrate roller coaster.
So, as an objective observer trying to make sense of this for the listener, how do we reconcile this? How can both mechanisms technically work to improve health and reverse chronic disease in clinical settings?
That is the big question.
The biochemical reality is that the human body possesses dual energy systems. We are, by evolutionary design, hybrid vehicles. We can run effectively on the glucose pathway, and we can run effectively on the ketone pathway. Both Null and Bartoll are utilizing distinct biologically valid metabolic states.
Right, they're both pulling a lever that works.
Exactly. But here is the critical, massive, often overlooked factor that unites both of these extreme paradigms. Both of these diets successfully and ruthlessly eliminate the true modern danger, ultra-processed Western foods.
That is the elephant in the room.
It is. Think about what they both ban. Neither diet allows refined sugars. Neither allows industrial seed oils like canola, soybean, or vegetable oil.
The seed oils are completely gone in both.
Gone. Neither allows highly processed, hyperpalatable junk food filled with emulsifiers and artificial colorings. By moving to either extreme, pure, pristine organic plants or pure, pristine, pasture-raised animal fats, you completely eliminate the toxic, inflammatory sludge of the standard American diet.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? Does the human body thrive specifically on a plant-based diet or specifically on a meat-based diet?
It's the ultimate debate.
Or does the human body simply thrive on the complete and total elimination of processed garbage, regardless of which extreme biological pathway you choose to activate?
That is the million-dollar question in nutritional science right now. The profound health reversals seen in both camps, people curing their diabetes, losing 100 pounds, eliminating autoimmune pain, might have less to do with the specific magic of amaranth grain or the specific magic of beef liver.
And more to do with what they aren't eating.
Exactly, and infinitely more to do with the total absence of high-fructose corn syrup, modified food starch, and industrial frying oils. When you stop poisoning the system daily, the system's profound innate capacity to heal, whether that healing is fueled by glucose or fueled by ketones, finally takes over.
But before we conclude that you can just pick your favorite extreme, flip a coin, and be fine, we have to look at the massive hidden dangers in sourcing, especially regarding Bartoll's high-fat paradigm.
This is crucial to bring up.
While Bartoll's diet avoids plant-based anti-nutrients and fiber friction, it introduces a massive environmental blind spot. We explored this deeply through the article Warning: Fat Holds Toxins from Miller's Biofarm.
This is where the elegant theory of a diet aggressively meets the ugly reality of our modern, industrialized planet.
The article introduces a claim from a Dr. Kiltz, who is a prominent proponent of the carnivore diet. At a dinner, Dr. Kiltz reportedly stated that macro-level changes, meaning simply eating a high-fat, meat-based diet, matter far more than labels like grass-fed or natural.
He's basically saying, just get the meat, don't worry too much about where it came from.
Right. He suggested that just getting the fat, protein, and carb ratios right is the most important thing, effectively downplaying the necessity of pristine, expensive sourcing.
However, the authors at Miller's Biofarm immediately and forcefully pushed back against this, and they countered it with a stark biochemical reality that cannot be ignored.
Which is?
Adipose tissue, which is the scientific term for fat, is the primary biological storage site for environmental and industrial pollutants in any animal.
Let's get into the deep science of this, because this is crucial if you are eating high fat. The article explains the difference between lipophilic toxins and hydrophilic toxins. Walk us through that mechanism.
Yes. Lipophilic literally translates from Greek as fat-living. These are chemical compounds that easily dissolve in and strongly bond with lipid or fat molecules. When an animal, or a human for that matter, is chronically exposed to these modern synthetic chemicals, the body often doesn't have an evolutionary mechanism to break them down. So in an act of biological self-defense, the body sequesters them.
It hides them.
Right. It shuttles them safely away into the fat cells to keep them out of the bloodstream and protect the vital organs like the heart and brain.
It sweeps the toxic dirt under the fatty rug.
Exactly. Hydrophilic toxins, on the other hand, are water-loving. They dissolve in water and are generally flushed out of the body through urine or sweat much more easily, assuming your kidneys and liver are functioning.
Now, there's a really fascinating tension in the sources we reviewed regarding one specific toxin, glyphosate, which is the active ingredient in the world's most common herbicide, Roundup.
This is a highly debated topic.
It is. The Miller's Biofarm article specifically states that glyphosate is hydrophilic, meaning it is water-loving, and therefore they claim it does not store in animal fat.
However, the comparative analysis document we also reviewed explicitly warns that glyphosate and other agricultural pesticides can and do accumulate in animal tissues, including fat.
Right. When the livestock are fed massive quantities of GMO, corn, soy, and sprayed pasture feeds over their lifetime.
Exactly.
So we have a direct contradiction in our source material. How do we impartially navigate that for the listener who is just trying to figure out if their steak is toxic?
Impartially, we have to look at the broader mechanism of industrial agriculture. While pure, isolated glyphosate molecules may technically be hydrophilic, Commercial herbicides like Roundup are incredibly complex
They
formulations.
aren't just one ingredient.
Right. They contain surfactants and adjuvants designed specifically to penetrate cellular walls and resist washing off. Furthermore, when you have animals consuming massive, unnatural quantities of heavily sprayed feed daily, they may experience systemic accumulation simply due to overwhelming chronic exposure.
Which affects all tissues, including the fat.
Exactly. But regardless of the exact binding mechanism of glyphosate specifically, the broader point made by Miller's biofarm remains undisputed. A vast array of other incredibly dangerous chemicals are definitively lipophilic and concentrate heavily in animal fat.
Let's detail exactly what those specific threats are, hiding in conventional grocery store animal fat. We are talking about heavy metals and adjuvants.
Which come from various points in the supply chain.
Right. The sources mention aluminum and thimerosal, which contains mercury, potentially accumulating in animal fats via the barrage of livestock vaccines used in concentrated animal feeding operations.
And that's just the start.
There are microplastics which can leach directly into fatty foods from conventional plastic packaging at the store. There are persistent organic pollutants, or POPs, ingested by animals grazing on depleted or industrially contaminated soil.
And don't forget the processing phase at the slaughterhouse. The sources highlight antimicrobial residues.
Oh, right, the bleach washes.
Yes. In standard, large-scale industrial slaughterhouses, carcasses are routinely subjected to chlorine or bleach washes to kill surface bacteria like E. coli. Those harsh chemicals can and do interact with the highly absorptive surface fats of the meat you are buying.
What's fascinating here is how this raises an incredibly important question regarding what the article calls the toxic cup analogy. Think about it.
It's a scary thought.
It really is. If your diet consists of 70 to 80% fat, like Bartoll recommends, and fat is the exact tissue where agricultural and industrial toxins bioaccumulate, are you inadvertently filling your biological toxic cup much faster than a plant heater if you aren't careful?
This raises an important question, and it is a critical, perhaps fatal vulnerability in Bartoll's paradigm if applied lazily. If you adopt the carnivore diet, but you are eating conventionally raised, factory-farmed feedlot cattle from a discount grocery store,
You're in trouble.
you aren't just getting evolutionary appropriate saturated fat and protein. You are getting a highly concentrated dose of every pesticide, synthetic hormone, antibiotic, and heavy metal that animal was exposed to over its entire lifetime, stored neatly in the exact fat you are using to fuel your brain.
And Bartoll clearly knows this, which is why the extrapolation and mitigation strategies required to actually survive his diet safely are so extreme. To do this without poisoning yourself, you have to follow incredibly strict sourcing rules.
You can't just casually pick up some ground beef.
According to the breakdown, you must source fat that is 100% pasture-raised and entirely grass-finished, no grain finishing. The animals must be explicitly vaccine-free and mRNA-free.
Finding that is a challenge in itself.
You have to find local, artisanal butchers who use natural organic acids, like a lactic acid spray or apple cider vinegar, instead of industrial bleach washes to clean the meat. And the meat must be stored exclusively in butcher paper, glass, or stainless steel to avoid microplastic leaching. Never ever plastic wrap.
The level of vigilance and auditing required is staggering. You are essentially having to completely bypass the entire modern grocery store supply chain to eat this way safely.
Which brings us to the ultimate irony of these extreme diets. We've brought these two completely diametric paradigms together, exploring their absolute opposite views on everything from fiber to protein to brain fuel.
Right, they couldn't be more different on paper.
But when you put them side by side, they reveal a shared, hidden, massive burden on the consumer.
They both require an immense amount of privilege, time, geographical luck, and financial resources to execute safely.
Exactly. Let's look at Null's followers. They can't just buy conventional vegetables at the corner store. Because they are juicing massively concentrated amounts of raw plant matter, they absolutely must source purely organic and non-GMO produce.
Which is very expensive.
Think about it. If you take conventional, heavily sprayed celery and apples and you juice them down, you are essentially mainlining concentrated pesticides directly into your liver.
Which entirely defeats the purpose of the detoxification protocol.
You're doing more harm than good.
And Bartoll's followers, as we just discussed at length, must source pristine, pasture-raised, vaccine-free fat to avoid severe bioaccumulation of lipophilic toxins. The margin for error on both diets is incredibly punishingly thin when it comes to food quality.
Both of these experts, despite their totally opposite, warring views on human digestion, the microbiome, and metabolism, secretly agree on one profound thing.
That the modern industrial agricultural system is profoundly toxic to human biology.
Yep.
It truly is the unifying theory behind both of their protocols. Industrial food is poison. How you choose to biologically navigate away from that poison is where they differ.
To summarize this elegantly for you, whether you are meticulously steaming your organic quinoa at a low temperature to avoid the heat-induced mutagens of a cooked plant, or you are deeply interrogating a local farmer about the thimerosal content of their cattle vaccines, eating optimally in the modern world is no longer just about making good choices.
It's much harder than that now.
It is essentially a full-time, exhausting biological audit. You have to be an investigative detective to eat safely on either end of this spectrum.
And that sobering reality leaves us with a final concept to mull over, building on everything we've synthesized from these texts today. What if the key to human longevity isn't actually about choosing a side in this war?
What do you mean?
What if it isn't about deciding once and for all between glucose or ketones? What if it isn't a strict binary choice between a purely plant-based detox and an evolutionary carnivore diet?
Okay, I'm listening.
What if the true defining human evolutionary superpower is actually metabolic flexibility?
Tell me more about that. What does that actually look like in practice?
Metabolic flexibility is the biological ability to adapt seamlessly on a cellular level to varying fuel sources based on your environment. It's the ability to burn glucose efficiently when seasonal plants and fruits are abundant, and the ability to transition smoothly without a crash into deep ketosis and burn stored fat when the winter comes and plants die off.
So, not being stuck in one mode.
Exactly. What if our modern epidemic of chronic diseases is simply a result of losing that inherent ancient flexibility because our biological engines are permanently jammed open with a cheap, continuous, year-round influx of industrial processed food? Perhaps the ultimate goal of health isn't to lock yourself permanently into one extreme rigid protocol, but to heal the engine enough to restore your body's natural ability to effortlessly navigate between them.
Thank you for listening to another session of the GeminanNotebook.art series. You can find the full archive of all my podcasts at GeminanNotebook.art.